What's up, YouTube? Missing a VGC back again, and today we're back with another Kaijudo deck profile. Today we are profiling Light Water Nature Renegade Hero Finbarr. This is another deck from my Kaijudo poll from the Ranger Dojo Facebook group, and this is a deck that got second place. This is also another deck that I have more or less stolen from Modest Duelist, and I'm just profiling it in physical card form instead of on Cockatrice because I really like playing with physical cards. This deck is, I feel, very, very well built. I also feel that I am missing 5 cards because I feel like Modest had 50 cards in his deck, but for some reason I only have 45. I haven't gone back to see what it is that I'm missing, if I'm missing anything at all, that is. But from what I do have in the games I have played, I really like how the deck is doing right now. I might go back and see what those 5 potential cards are that I'm missing. But from what I've played so far, this deck is really, really solid as is. So let's go ahead and get into this build real quick. We're playing 3 copies of Cyber Sprite. It is a 1 for 2,000 blocker with guard. This whole deck revolves around having blocker and guard. So that's going to be a good chunk of what everything is going to be. You have 3 copies of Aqua Initiate, which is more or less the exact same thing, just a different race. But in this deck, race doesn't matter. So, more of a great thing. We also play 3 copies of Waterway Watcher. This is another card from Eye of the Storm, but I unfortunately forgot to send this card in to get printed. So, we're going to deal with these ugly looking proxies for now. So, Water Watcher is a 1 for 1,000 card that has blocker and guard, but also has the ability Powerful Block. So when it blocks, it gains 2,000 power. So at least once, it will be a 3,000 power 1-drop, which is pretty good. And the last for our level 1s, we play 3 copy of Chasm Entangler. Just a 1 for 2,000 blocker for the Light Civilization that is just really good for what this deck needs to do. Next, we play 3 copies of Ironwool Tree, one of my favorite blockers in the game. It's really good against shutting down opponents' disruption cards like Mesmerize and Spire Puppet, Maddening Whispers. Basically, if you get this card, it stops that from working on you. So you get to keep all your cards in your hand. We play 3 copies of Bloom Warden because, as stated previously in another video, I simp Bloom Warden like crazy. I don't know what it is about this card that I love so much. But for those of you who've never played Bloom Warden, it's a 3 for 4,000 power card with blocker and guard, and when it dies, it goes to the mana zone. So, it's pretty good. We play 3 copies of Full Metal Lemon, everyone's favorite blocker. 3 for 3,500 blocker with Skirmisher that also goes to the mana when it dies. So, it's Full Metal Lemon. You know what it do. It's good. Next, we have 3 copies of Hovercleft Glurgle. This card is really, really funny. I really like Hovercleft Glurgle. Anytime one of your creatures would lose a battle and be vanished, you add that creature back to your hand. So, let's say you're blocking with like your Chasm Entanglers on stuff, and you're like blocking like all these giant creatures. You just get them back to your hand, just summon them all again next turn, and just keep stopping your opponent. And it's a vicious, endless cycle until they get rid of the Hovercraft, which in all is really easy for them to do because it's only 1,000 power. All the weakest spells and abilities that lower power can get rid of Hovercraft. But if Hovercraft stays, it puts in so much work and it becomes such a menace. It's really, really funny. Next, we play 3 copies of I Spy. I Spy is a 4 for 2,000 card that has blocker, skirmisher, and whenever it enters the battle zone, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 creature that has blocker from among it to your hand, and then put the other 2 at the bottom of your deck in any order that you want. Great for getting some more advantage. Hopefully you draw in some of your bigger boss cards you want to be seeing. All in all, it's just a really good card. I really, really like I Spy, and it just looks and sounds stupid. 1 copy of Nurturing Hive. I kind of want to bump this up to 2, But every time I say that, I just haven't really seen a reason to, because I always end up seeing it because of how much draw this deck eventually gets. But basically, you tap 1 less mana to summon all of your creatures, which it doesn't state that everything has to cost at least 1. So your 12 1-drops from the beginning of the video, you just get them all back for free. So if you have this and Hovercraft out, you're constantly getting your advantage back. You're dropping all these cards for free, and then dropping more cards like I Spy to keep getting more resources, and it all piles up, and it becomes quite overwhelming for your opponent if they don't have an out to all of this nonsense that you're doing. Next, we play 3 copies of Containment Field. This card is a Shield Blast that will tap creatures your opponent controls up to the number of creatures you currently control. And with how fast you can swarm the field with blockers and stuff, especially with like Nurturing Hive, there's been times where I have like Containment Field for 10, and my opponent didn't have 10. But this card just really blows out your opponent. The first time I played this deck, I was going against my little brother who was playing the Fresh Avenue deck I had profiled previously. And when I dropped Containment Field, I was able to just completely just wipe him out that turn. He couldn't do anything to stop me. I somehow managed to beat him without triggering any of his Fresh Avenue effects from going off, and it was a really good time, and he absolutely hates this card now. Play 3 copies of Panopter. Panopter was quite the card back in the day. 5 for 4,000 blocker or skirmisher, and every time that you play a creature that has blocker, you get to draw a card. So you're going to be drawing a lot with this card. And it stacks. If you have 2 Panopter, you get to draw 2 cards every time you play a blocker. And if you have the Nurturing Hive out and all that other fun stuff with the 1-drops, you're going to be drawing a lot. Next is the namesake of the deck. We have 3 copies of Renegade Hero Finbarr. This is one of my favorite cards from the set that was never released. This card has 5 for 4,000, just like Panopter. It has blocker, just like Panopter. Every time you play a card with a guard, you get to draw a card. So it works with Panopter. So if you're playing something like, if you drop a Aqua Initiate or a Cyber Sprite again, you get to draw 2 cards, 1 for the guard, 1 for the Panopter's blocker. So it really, really gets crazy. It gives all of your cards with guard the ability to attack as if they don't have that ability. So it's essentially a walking rally of the reserves. And at the end of your turn, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and pick one of them and just place it on top and put the other 2 at the bottom of your deck. So you get to stack your deck as well at the end of the turn as if you weren't doing enough already. This card is really good. I really, really like it. I'm very upset that this card never really got to see the light of day, because this card is really, really fun. The last creature that we play is 3 copies of Magistrate Jaziri. It evolves off of any light creature. It has Double Breaker. It has blocker. And its unleash effect is, at the end of your turn, you untap all of your blockers that are on the field. Sorry, it taps all your creatures, but you're playing all blockers, so you can try and swing in for a game. If you don't quite get there, they untap, you get to protect yourself for next turn and try and do it again next turn. It's such a good card. It works very well with this deck. Since it evolves off of any light, you don't have to worry about races or anything. You don't need like enforcers or anything like that. Just go in hard and try and win. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Stormspark Blast. I've considered playing 3, but I feel the 2 is fine with the 3 containment fields. All your creatures are fairly weak aside from the Jaziri, but even still, like, you top off at 8,500, which most things can still get over late in the game. So you're going to need some way to get over your opponent's giant boss monsters, and the only real way we have of doing that is Stormspark Blast and Containment Field. So the ability to just tap your opponent's whole field, just swing in for game, push super hard is really, really good. And the last card I play is 3 copies of Swift Regeneration. For the cost of 8 mana, you can target cards in your mana zone that equal up to level 7, and then just play them all. Just right out of your mana zone, just drop all of them. And if a creature has more than 0 power, which should be all of them, they cannot be banished. So your creatures cannot die until the start of your next turn. So even if like you like swing in and you like don't attack with everything, if you still have blockers, your blockers won't die. They just stay. It's really good. Like I said, this is a deck that Modest had built, and frankly, I absolutely love it. It is so much fun to play. I think he did a great job building it. I honestly don't know what cards I would take out. Like I said, I think I'm missing some cards from his list, but I'm not entirely sure what they were. But if you have access to a way to build this deck, if you even just print up some proxies for yourself, this deck is so much fun to play. I highly recommend it. That being said, you get completely blown out if your opponent drops an Infernus on you. You're done. If you have any way, if your opponent plays any cards, just like destroy all blockers, like it's no good. It's not going to be a good time for you. But from my playtesting, this deck is super, super fun. I win more times than I have lost with it, so I guess that says something. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. What would you guys change about the deck? And I will see you guys later.